There are words that cut through your chest like sharp blades, and when they come from someone you love, from someone you welcomed as a daughter, the pain is different. It's a kind of loneliness that eats away at you from the inside, even when you're surrounded by people. I know what that is. I know what it's like to sit at the Christmas table, hear laughter all around, and feel a deafening emptiness in your heart. I know what it's like to be called a gold digger, an opportunist, inside your own family. I know what it's like to love too much and still be treated like you're worth nothing. My name doesn't matter, but my story, maybe it matters to you, because what happened to me could happen to any woman, and what I did after changed everything. Have you ever been judged without even having the chance to defend yourself? Have you ever felt that lump in your throat, that urge to scream the truth but the words just won't come out? Share in the comments where you're watching us from. Your story matters too. For years, I was just Jorge's woman, the wife, the mother, the grandmother. My identity was glued to them as if I didn't exist on my own, and I accepted it, because I thought love was that, erasing yourself to make others shine. But when my husband died, everything changed. Suddenly, I wasn't invisible anymore. I was the rich widow, the woman who got lucky, the gold digger who waited for the right moment to inherit everything. My daughter-in-law looked at me with contempt. She whispered poisonous comments during dinners. My own son stayed silent, as if my 40 years of love beside his father meant nothing. Thousands of mothers, wives, and grandmothers live this same pain in silence, enduring humiliation, swallowing words, pretending everything's fine while their hearts bleed. But that Saturday night, when I heard my daughter-in-law call me an old gold digger in front of everyone, something inside me broke, and from the silence of the ashes, a truth was born that nobody expected to hear. I could have stayed quiet. I could have let the tears roll in secret, like I always did. I could have accepted that unfair label and lived the rest of my days as the villain of the story, but I didn't. Because sometimes, the most powerful revenge isn't screaming. It's simply telling the truth. And the truth was one. I didn't inherit any empire. I built my own. While everyone slept, I woke up at 5 a.m. While everyone thought I was just embroidering, I was stitching together a business that today is worth millions. While they called me a housewife, I was the owner of myself. And that night, in front of everyone, I finally said it. You think I married for money? Honey, Jorge's money could barely pay the bills. Everything you see here, this house, the cars, the trips, I paid for it. With my sweat, with my company, with the nights I didn't sleep to make sure my son had a future. The silence that came after was deafening. At the end of this story, you're going to understand one thing. You never need to prove your worth to those who don't see you. But when the truth comes out, and it always does, the whole world will realize what you always were. Subscribe to hear the rest of this story and discover what happened when my daughter-in-law finally found out who I really was. Because this is just the first part of a journey of pain, silence, and a fresh start that nobody expected. Leave a heart in the comments if you've also been underestimated. Let me take you back to where it all began. Not to the night of the confrontation, but to the beginning. To the girl I was before I became the woman everyone thought they knew. I grew up in a small town where dreams were luxuries we couldn't afford. My father worked at the steel mill. My mother cleaned houses. We had love, yes, but we also had empty cupboards and worn-out shoes that I had to make last 2 winters instead of 1. I learned early that nobody was going to save me, that if I wanted something different, I'd have to build it with my own hands. At 16, I started sewing. Not because I loved it, because I needed it. I'd fix neighbors' clothes for a few dollars, hem pants, men torn shirts. My fingers would bleed from the needle pricks, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. By 18, I had saved enough to buy my first real sewing machine. Not new. It was older than I was, probably, but it was mine. That's when I met Jorge. He was 22, worked at his father's auto shop, had kind eyes and rough hands, hands that knew hard work, just like mine. We fell in love the way young people do. Fast, intense, believing that love alone could conquer everything. His family liked me. They thought I was sweet, humble, the kind of girl who'd make a good wife. And maybe I was. But I was also the kind of girl who dreamed of more than just being someone's wife. We got married when I was 20, had our son, Miguel, 2 years later. And life became a beautiful, exhausting blur of diapers and dishes and sleepless nights. Jorge worked long hours at the shop. I stayed home with the baby. And my sewing machine sat in the corner of our tiny bedroom, gathering dust. I told myself it was temporary. That once Miguel was older, I'd get back to it. I'd start sewing again. Maybe even start that small business I'd always dreamed of. But years have a way of disappearing when you're not looking. Miguel started school, then middle school, then high school. And I was still there, in that same house, waiting for the right time that never seemed to come. Jorge's father retired and Jorge took over the auto shop. We had a little more money then. Not much, but enough to stop worrying about every single bill. Enough to breathe a little easier. That's when I picked up that old sewing machine again. I started small. So small that nobody even noticed. I'd sew while Jorge watched television, while Miguel did his homework, while the world moved around me, oblivious. I made curtains for our living room, a quilt for our bed, a dress for myself that I wore to church and got so many compliments on that 3 women asked if I could make them one too. And I did. I charged them almost nothing, just enough to buy more fabric, because it wasn't about the money yet. It was about remembering who I was before I became someone's wife, someone's mother. It was about finding myself again in the rhythm of the needle, in the hum of that old machine. Word spread slowly in our small town. Women started coming to me. At first for simple things, alterations, repairs. But then they wanted more. Custom dresses, tailored suits, elegant pieces for special occasions. I worked from our spare bedroom. Jorge thought it was a nice hobby, something to keep me busy now that Miguel was older and didn't need me as much. A hobby. That word stung more than he knew. Because it wasn't a hobby. It was a lifeline. It was the only thing that made me feel like I was more than just the woman who cooked dinner and did laundry. But I didn't correct him. I smiled and nodded and kept sewing. Miguel grew up and went to college, studied business, came home on weekends and told us about his classes, his friends, his dreams of starting his own company someday. I listened and smiled and encouraged him. And late at night, after everyone was asleep, I worked on my own dreams in that small bedroom with the door closed. By the time Miguel graduated, I had 20 regular clients. Women who trusted me with their most important moments, their weddings, their anniversaries, their job interviews. I had a waiting list. Jorge still called it my hobby. Then Miguel met her, Lisa. She was beautiful, confident, came from a family with money, the kind of money we'd never had. Her father owned a chain of restaurants. Her mother was on the board of some charity organization. Lisa was everything I wasn't. Polished, educated, born into a world that I had only seen from the outside. And when Miguel brought her home for the first time, I saw the way she looked at our house. Our modest, simple home that Jorge and I had worked so hard to buy. I saw the flicker of disappointment in her eyes. But Miguel loved her, and I wanted my son to be happy. So I welcomed her with open arms and an open heart. They got married 2 years later. It was a beautiful wedding. Lisa's family paid for most of it. We contributed what we could, but it was clear we were guests in their world, not equals. I made Lisa's wedding dress. She didn't ask me to. Actually, she had already picked out a designer gown that cost more than Jorge made in 3 months. But when she mentioned it casually at dinner one night, I offered, "Let me make your dress. I'd be honored." She looked at me like I'd suggested she get married in a potato sack. But Miguel jumped in, told her how talented I was, showed her photos of dresses I'd made. She agreed, reluctantly. And I poured everything I had into that dress. Every skill I'd learned, every technique I'd mastered. I worked on it for months, staying up until 2, 3 in the morning, perfecting every seam, every detail. The day she tried it on for the final fitting, she cried. "It's perfect," she whispered, looking at herself in the mirror. "I've never seen anything so beautiful." For a moment, I thought maybe I'd been wrong about her. Maybe beneath that polished exterior was a woman who could appreciate not just the dress, but the heart that went into making it. But after the wedding, things changed. They moved into a house that Lisa's parents helped them buy. It was in a nice neighborhood, the kind with manicured lawns and expensive cars in every driveway. Miguel got a job at one of her father's restaurants, managing operations. And slowly, visit by visit, I watched my son drift away. At first, it was subtle. He'd cancel Sunday dinners because they had plans with Lisa's family. He'd forget to call on my birthday. He'd show up for holidays, but leave early, always with some excuse about an event they had to attend. Lisa was always polite to my face, always smiled, always said the right things. But I could feel it, the coldness underneath, the judgment in her eyes when she looked at our worn furniture, our outdated kitchen, the way Jorge still drove the same truck he'd had for 15 years. And I said nothing. Because what could I say? That I felt like I was losing my son? That his wife looked at me like I was beneath her? that every time they visited, I felt smaller and smaller in my own home. I stayed quiet and kept sewing. My business grew. What started as 20 clients became 50, then 100. Women were driving from neighboring towns to have me make their clothes. I hired 2 seamstresses to help me keep up with the demand. I moved my operation out of our spare bedroom and into a small storefront downtown. Nothing fancy, just a simple space with good lighting and room for more machines. Jorge was proud in his way. He'd tell his friends at the auto shop about his wife's little dress shop, his hobby that had turned into a real business. I stopped correcting him. The money started coming in. Real money. More than I'd ever imagined. I paid off our mortgage, bought Jorge a new truck, put money away for retirement, and I kept reinvesting in the business, expanding, hiring more people, taking on bigger clients. I was 55 years old, and for the first time in my life, I had financial security that I had built myself. But Miguel didn't know. Not really. He knew I had a dress shop. He knew I was doing okay. But he didn't know the numbers. Didn't know that my little hobby was generating more income than Jorge's auto shop ever had. I didn't tell him because it never came up. Because when we did see him, the conversations were always about his life, his job, his wife's family, their plans. Never about mine. Then Jorge got sick. It started with fatigue. He'd come home from the shop exhausted, more than usual. Then came the weight loss, the cough that wouldn't go away. By the time we got him to a doctor, the cancer had already spread. Stage 4. Inoperable. They gave him 6 months. He lasted 4. Those 4 months were the longest and shortest of my life. Long because every day was filled with doctor's appointments and treatments that we knew wouldn't work but tried anyway. Short because every moment felt like sand slipping through my fingers, and I couldn't hold on tight enough. Miguel came around more during those months. Lisa, too. They'd visit, sit with Jorge for an hour or 2, then leave, and I'd be there, alone again, watching the man I'd loved for 40 years fade away a little more each day. Jorge died on a Tuesday morning in March. I was holding his hand. Miguel was at work. He'd said he'd come by that afternoon. He didn't make it in time. The funeral was beautiful. So many people came. Jorge had been loved in our community, the auto shop, the church, our neighbors. They all showed up to say goodbye. Lisa's family came too. Her parents stood in the back, looking uncomfortable, like they weren't used to funerals that weren't held in grand cathedrals with organ music and programs printed on expensive paper. After the service, after everyone had left, after the last casserole had been delivered, and the house fell silent, I sat in our bedroom and cried. Not just for Jorge, but for everything. For the years that had passed so quickly. For the dreams I'd put on hold. For the loneliness that I knew was coming. But grief has a strange way of clarifying things. Sitting there in that empty house, I realized something. I was 62 years old. I'd spent 40 of those years being Jorge's wife, Miguel's mother, and while I didn't regret a single moment of it, I also realized that I had spent so much of my life being someone to other people that I'd almost forgotten how to just be myself, and I still had time. Not a lot, maybe, but enough. So I got up, washed my face, and went back to work. The business kept growing. I opened a second location, then a third. I started designing my own line of clothing, not just custom pieces. I hired a young woman with a degree in business to help me with marketing and online sales. Within 2 years of Jorge's death, my company had expanded beyond anything I'd imagined. We were shipping dresses across the country. We had a website, a social media presence, articles in fashion magazines about the grandmother who built an empire from a spare bedroom. I bought a new house. Not huge, but comfortable. Modern, with large windows that let in light and a garden where I could sit in the mornings with my coffee. I traveled, Paris, Milan, New York, places I'd only dreamed about when I was a girl with bleeding fingers sewing in a cramped bedroom. And through all of it, Miguel remained distant. He'd call occasionally, visit for an hour on holidays. But there was a wall between us now, and I didn't know how to break it down. Lisa never called. Then came Miguel's 40th birthday party. Lisa organized it at their house, a big event, catered food, bartenders, guests I didn't recognize, mostly Lisa's friends and family. I almost didn't go. I knew I'd feel out of place, but he was my son. So I put on one of my own designs, an elegant navy dress that cost more to make than most people spent on rent, and I went. The moment I walked in, I felt it. The eyes, the whispers, Lisa's mother looking me up and down with that same judgment I'd seen in her daughter's eyes years ago. I found Miguel in the kitchen, gave him his gift, a watch his father would have loved. He thanked me absently, distracted by guests, by Lisa calling his name from the other room. I spent most of the party standing alone in the corner, smiling politely at strangers, feeling like a ghost in my own son's life. Then I overheard them. Lisa was in the hallway with her mother and two of her friends. I'd gone looking for the bathroom and heard their voices before I saw them. "I can't believe she showed up in that dress," one of the friends said. "Who does she think she is?" Lisa laughed. "It's designer, I'm sure. She probably spent Jorge's life insurance money on it." Her mother chimed in. "I still don't understand what she does with herself all day. Jorge left her comfortable, and now she just plays dress-up in that little shop of hers." More laughter. Then Lisa said it. The words that would change everything. "She's always been a gold digger. Just played the long game. 40 years of pretending to be the devoted wife, and now she's living it up on Jorge's dime. It's actually kind of pathetic." I stood there in that hallway, frozen, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my chest. Every instinct told me to leave, to walk out quietly, to cry in my car and never come back. But something else rose up inside me. Something that had been building for years, for decades. All those times I'd stayed quiet. All those moments I'd let people underestimate me, dismiss me, make me feel small. Not anymore. I walked into that hallway, stood right in front of them, watched their faces go pale as they realized I'd heard every word. And I smiled. "Is that what you think?" I said quietly. "That I'm living off Jorge's money?" Lisa opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her mother looked away. The friends suddenly found the floor very interesting. "Come with me," I said, "all of you. There's something you need to see." I walked back into the party, found Miguel, told him I needed to talk to him, to everyone actually. The confusion on his face almost broke my heart, but I was done protecting everyone else's comfort at the expense of my own dignity. "Lisa," I called across the room. "Could you join us?" The party had gone quiet. Everyone was watching now. I stood there in the center of that crowded room, surrounded by people who thought they knew me, and I felt strangely calm, like I'd been holding my breath for 40 years and could finally exhale. Miguel looked worried. "Mom, what's going on?" Lisa walked over slowly, her face tight, trying to maintain that perfect composure she wore like armor, but I could see the fear underneath. She knew. She knew I'd heard. "I need to clear something up," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "There seems to be some confusion about who I am, what I am, and I think it's time we set the record straight." Lisa's mother moved toward the door. I held up my hand. "Please stay," I said. "You're going to want to hear this too." The room was silent now. Even the catering staff had stopped moving. I looked at my son, my beautiful boy who I'd raised and loved and would have died for, who'd grown into a man I barely recognized anymore. "Miguel, do you know what I do? Not what you think I do. What I actually do." He blinked, confused. "You have a dress shop, Mom. You make clothes." I nodded. "That's right. I make clothes. But do you know how many clothes? How many shops? How many employees?" He shook his head slowly. I turned to look at Lisa, then at her mother, then at all those faces staring at me with curiosity and judgment, and that particular kind of pity people reserve for women they think are past their prime. "I own 6 boutiques," I said. 3 in this state, 3 in neighboring states. I employ 42 people. Last year, my company generated $4.7 million in revenue. The silence somehow got heavier. "The house Jorge and I lived in? The one you grew up in, Miguel? I paid off that mortgage 10 years before your father died. This new house I live in now? I paid cash. The car I drive? Cash. The trips I take? My money. Every single penny came from my work, from my business, from the company I built while everyone thought I was just playing with fabric in my spare time." Miguel's face had gone white. "Mom, I didn't know." "I know you didn't," I said softly, "because I never told you. Because every time you called, you talked about your life, your job, your plans. And I listened. I was always so happy just to hear your voice that I never bothered to share my own achievements. I thought being a good mother meant making space for you to shine. I didn't realize it meant making myself invisible." I turned back to Lisa. Her face was red now, a mix of embarrassment and anger. "You called me a gold digger," I said. "You said I played the long game, that I spent 40 years pretending to be devoted so I could live off Jorge's money." "I wasn't," she started, but I cut her off. "Yes, you were. I heard you. Every word. And you know what the funny thing is? Jorge's auto shop did well. We lived comfortably. But when he died, you want to know what he left me? $73,000. That was his entire life insurance policy. $73,000. I paused, letting that sink in. Do you know how much I make in a month now? More than twice that. Do you know how much my company is worth? Conservative estimate? $12 million. I built that. Not Jorge. Me. While you were looking down on me, I was building an empire you couldn't even imagine. Lisa's mother stepped forward. I think there's been a misunderstanding. No, I said firmly. There hasn't. There's been 40 years of assumptions. 40 years of people seeing a quiet woman who sews and thinking that's all she is, all she could be. You looked at me and saw someone beneath you, someone who got lucky by marrying a man with a business. You never once asked about mine. Miguel's voice was small. Mom, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I know, baby, and that's partly my fault. I should have told you, should have included you, but it's also because you stopped asking. After you got married, after you moved into this world, I became background noise. The old mom who makes dresses. Not a person with her own life, her own dreams, her own success. The tears in his eyes matched the ones starting to form in mine. But I wasn't done. I looked around the room at all those faces. Some looked shocked. Some looked embarrassed. Some looked like they were trying to figure out if I was lying. I'm not telling you this to brag, I said. I'm telling you because I'm tired. I'm tired of being underestimated. I'm tired of being treated like I'm less than. I'm tired of watching my own daughter-in-law mock me to her friends while I stand in a hallway listening to how pathetic I am. Lisa's voice cracked. I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did, I said quietly. And maybe that's okay. Maybe you needed to believe I was something small so you could feel big. Maybe my son needed to see me as just his mom, not as a complete person with a whole life beyond him. Maybe that's what families do. We put each other in boxes because it's easier than seeing the whole truth. But I'm done with boxes. I looked at Miguel again. I love you. I have always loved you. You are the best thing I ever made, and I would do it all again in a heartbeat. But I can't keep shrinking myself to fit into whatever idea of me makes you comfortable. I am your mother, yes. But I'm also a businesswoman, an entrepreneur, a woman who built something from nothing while people patted me on the head and called it a hobby. The room was so quiet I could hear someone's watch ticking. Jorge would have been proud of you, Miguel said, his voice breaking. Dad would have been so proud. And that's when I lost it. The tears came, hot and fast, and I couldn't stop them. He was proud, I whispered. He told me every day. Even when he didn't fully understand what I was building, he was proud. He believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And when he got sick, when we needed money for treatments that insurance wouldn't cover, my business paid for it. Every experimental treatment, every specialist, every medication that might buy him one more day. That was my money, my company. And I would have spent every penny if it meant one more minute with him. The silence that followed felt different now, softer somehow. Lisa was crying too. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I thought you were just this quiet woman who let life happen to her. I didn't see you. I know, I said. Most people don't. And maybe that's been my own doing. Maybe I've hidden for so long that I forgot how to be seen. One of the guests, an older woman I didn't recognize, started clapping. Slowly at first, then others joined. Soon the whole room was applauding, and I stood there feeling more exposed and more powerful than I'd ever felt in my life. Miguel came to me then, wrapped his arms around me the way he used to when he was small and scared of thunderstorms. I'm sorry, Mom, he whispered into my shoulder. I'm so sorry I didn't see you. I'm sorry I let you become invisible. I'm sorry I believed what was easy instead of asking what was true. I held him tight, breathing in the smell of him that was still somehow my little boy underneath the expensive cologne. We have time, I said. We can start over, but I need you to see me. Really see me. Not as just your mom, as a person, as someone with value beyond what I can give you. He nodded against my shoulder, and I felt his tears soaking through my expensive dress. Lisa approached slowly, uncertain. I don't know what to say. I've been so wrong about you, about everything. You can start by getting to know me, I said. The real me, not the version you invented in your head. I'm happy to start fresh if you are. She nodded, wiping her eyes, and in that moment, she looked younger, more human, less like the perfect, polished woman, and more like a scared girl who maybe had her own invisible boxes she'd been living in. The party slowly came back to life after that. People approached me, asked questions about my business, told me stories about their own mothers or grandmothers who'd been underestimated. The energy had shifted. I was no longer the sad widow in the corner. I was a person. A whole, complete person with a story worth hearing. Lisa's mother approached me as I was getting ready to leave. "I owe you an apology," she said stiffly. "I made assumptions. They were wrong." "Yes," I said. "They were. But I understand why you made them. We're taught to see women a certain way, especially older women, especially women who come from where I came from. It's easier to dismiss us than to see us." She nodded slowly. "How did you do it? Build all that while raising a family?" I smiled. "The same way men do. One day at a time. Except I had to do it without anyone noticing, without anyone feeling threatened, without anyone thinking I was neglecting my real job, which was apparently being quietly supportive in the background." She actually laughed at that. A real laugh. "My daughter could learn from you," she said. "We all could," I said gently. "We could all learn to see each other more clearly, to ask more questions, to make fewer assumptions." I drove home that night, feeling lighter than I had in years. Not because I'd put anyone in their place, not because I'd proven something, but because I'd finally spoken my truth. I'd finally let myself be seen. The next morning, Miguel called. "Can I come over?" he asked. "Just me. I want to talk." "Of course," I said. He showed up an hour later with coffee and pastries from the bakery I loved. We sat in my garden, the morning sun warm on our faces, and for the first time in years, we really talked. "Tell me everything," he said. "I want to know. How you started, how you grew it, why you never told me." So I did. I told him about those early mornings when he was young, when I'd sew while he slept, about the first dress I sold, about the fear I felt opening that first storefront, about the moment I realized I'd built something real, something lasting, something mine. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. "Why didn't you let me celebrate with you?" I thought about that question, really thought about it. "Because I didn't want you to worry," I said finally. "Because I didn't want you to feel like I needed recognition or praise. Because being your mom was enough for me. Or at least, I told myself it was enough. But maybe the truth is I was scared. Scared that if I became too successful, too visible, too much, you wouldn't need me anymore. That the only value I had was in being the quiet support, the background music to everyone else's symphony." He reached across the table and took my hand. "You're not background music, Mom. You're the whole damn orchestra. And I'm sorry it took me this long to hear it." We sat there for a long time, just holding hands, letting years of misunderstanding and distance slowly dissolve in the morning light. Lisa came to see me a week later, alone. No Miguel, no friends, just her. "I don't know how to do this," she said when I opened the door. "I don't know how to apologize for years of being awful." "Start by coming in," I said. "We'll figure it out from there." We sat in my living room, tea growing cold between us, and she told me her story. She'd grown up with money, but also with pressure. Pressure to be perfect, to marry well, to maintain an image. She'd learned early that women were either powerful or likable, never both. That success came with judgment. That the only safe space for a woman was in being quietly decorative. "When I met Miguel," she said, "I thought I'd found someone who'd let me be more. But then I met you, and you scared me." "I scared you?" I asked, genuinely surprised. "You were everything I was afraid of becoming," she said. "A woman who'd given up her dreams for family, who'd faded into the background. I looked at you and thought, that's what happens when you choose love over ambition. You disappear." And I was terrified of disappearing. But I didn't disappear. I said softly. "I was just invisible to people who weren't looking closely." "I know that now," she said. "And the irony is, I did exactly what I was afraid of. I disappeared into being Miguel's wife, into being my parents' perfect daughter, into being this polished version of a person instead of an actual person. And when I saw you still standing there, still quiet, still seeming so content in your invisibility, it made me angry. Because I thought you'd given up. I didn't realize you were playing a completely different game." "We're all playing different games," I said. "The tragedy is when we don't realize it, when we judge each other's choices without understanding the rules we're each playing by." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I want to learn from you. Not just about business. About how to be both. How to be successful and kind. How to take up space without pushing others out of theirs. How to be seen without needing everyone's approval." I smiled. "That's the work of a lifetime. I'm still learning it myself." "Can I come back?" she asked. "Can we start over?" "You can come back," I said. "But we're not starting over. We're starting forward, with all the mess and mistakes behind us as lessons, not erasures. She came back the next week, and the week after. Sometimes with Miguel, sometimes alone. We talked about her job, her frustrations, her dreams she'd buried under layers of other people's expectations. I introduced her to my business manager, took her to one of my boutiques, showed her the books. She was smart, sharp, saw opportunities I'd missed. You should expand online, she said. Not just sales, virtual consultations, custom designs for people who can't come to the stores. You could reach people all over the world. She was right. Within 6 months, we'd launched a whole digital arm of the business. Lisa helped design the website. Miguel helped with the financial planning. It became a family project, the kind I'd always dreamed of but never asked for. My business grew even more. But more importantly, my family came back together. Different than before. Better than before. We had Sunday dinners again, but now they were filled with real conversation. About business, about struggles, about dreams and fears, and all the messy human things we'd been too scared to share before. One Sunday, about a year after the birthday party, Lisa brought up something I'd been thinking about but hadn't voiced. You should write a book, she said. Your story. How you built this. Women need to hear it. I'm not a writer, I said. You don't have to be, Miguel chimed in. Just tell your story the way you told it to us, honestly, without making yourself small. So I did. I hired a writer to help me. We spent months going through my history, my struggles, my failures and successes. The book wasn't just about business. It was about identity, about the ways women are taught to hide their ambition, about the cost of invisibility and the courage it takes to be seen. It published 2 years after that night at Miguel's party. Made the bestseller list. Not because it was revolutionary, but because it was true. And thousands of women saw themselves in it. I started getting letters, emails, messages from women all over the country telling me their own stories. The businesses they'd built in secret, the dreams they'd deferred, the ways they'd made themselves small to fit into spaces that were too narrow for them. And I realized something. I wasn't unique. My story wasn't special. It was universal. How many women were out there right now, building empires in spare bedrooms while everyone called it a hobby? How many were told they were lucky when really they were brilliant? How many were invisible, not because they'd faded, but because nobody was looking? I started speaking at conferences, business schools, women's groups, not as some success guru, but as someone who understood the particular challenge of being a woman with ambition in a world that wanted you to be quiet about it. Miguel came to one of my talks, brought Lisa. They sat in the back, and I could see him crying as I told the story of that night at his party. The night everything changed. The night I finally let myself be seen. After the talk, a young woman approached me. She couldn't have been more than 25. She was crying. That's my mom, she said. Everything you described. She's brilliant. She runs this amazing catering business from our kitchen, but nobody sees it. My dad calls it her little cooking thing. I call her a housewife when people ask what she does. And I never realized until right now that I've been making her invisible too. Tell her, I said. Tell her you see her. Tell her she's not just your mom. She's a whole person. It matters more than you know. She nodded, wiping her eyes, and I watched her walk away, hoping she'd actually do it, hoping one more woman would get to feel seen by the people she loved. The years have passed quickly since then. I'm 70 now. My hair is completely white. My hands aren't as steady as they used to be, but my business is thriving. My relationship with my son is deeper than it's ever been. Lisa and I have become genuine friends, the kind who can be honest with each other about hard things. I have 3 grandchildren now, 2 from Miguel and Lisa, 1 more on the way. And I'm teaching them something I wish I'd known earlier, that you don't have to choose between love and ambition, between family and success, between being good and being great. You can be all of it. You just have to be brave enough to let people see all of you, even the parts that make them uncomfortable. The other day, my oldest granddaughter, she's 8, asked me what I do. I make beautiful things, I told her, and I built a business. And I love your daddy very much. And I travel the world. And I write books. And I'm still learning new things every day. Can girls do all that? She asked. Girls can do anything, I said. But sometimes the world will try to make you small. Try to convince you that you have to choose. That you can be a mom or successful. Kind or powerful. Seen or loved. And that's when you have to remember, those are false choices. You can be everything you want to be. You just have to be willing to stand up and say so, even when everyone expects you to sit down and be quiet. She thought about that for a minute, then nodded seriously. Like you did at Daddy's birthday party? I laughed. Exactly like that. Because that's what that night was really about. Not revenge, not proving people wrong, but simply refusing to accept a story about myself that wasn't true. Refusing to stay in a box that was too small. Refusing to let other people's limited vision become my limited reality. Sometimes I think about the girl I was. The one with bleeding fingers and worn-out shoes. The one who thought love meant disappearing. And I wish I could go back and tell her what I know now. That visibility isn't vanity. That taking up space isn't selfish. That building something of your own doesn't mean you love your family less. But maybe she had to learn it the hard way. Maybe we all do. I still sew sometimes. Not because I have to, but because I love it. The rhythm of it. The way fabric transforms under my hands into something beautiful and useful. It reminds me where I came from. Who I was before the business, before the success, before the recognition. Just a woman who loved creating things, who found power in the simple act of making something from nothing. My boutiques have expanded to 12 locations now. We employ over 100 people, women mostly. Many of them are like I was, talented, hardworking, invisible. I make it a point to see them, to ask about their lives, to create opportunities for growth, to pay them well enough that they don't have to choose between feeding their families and pursuing their dreams. Because I remember what it's like to have to choose, to feel like dreaming is a luxury you can't afford. One of my employees, Rosa, she's 53, started with me 5 years ago as a seamstress, barely spoke English, sent most of her money back to her family in Guatemala. She'd sit at her machine for hours, barely taking breaks, producing work that was flawless. I noticed the way she'd sketch designs during lunch, little drawings on napkins that she'd crumple up and throw away before anyone could see. I started asking her about them. At first she was embarrassed, said it was nothing, just silly ideas. But I pressed, gently, consistently, until finally she showed me. They were beautiful. Traditional Guatemalan patterns reimagined for modern silhouettes. Bright colors, bold designs, work that deserved to be seen. We launched a collection together last year. Rosa's designs, my business infrastructure, her name on every label. The collection sold out in 3 weeks. She cried when she saw her name in print, said she never thought anyone would care about her ideas, that she'd spent her whole life being invisible. I held her hand and told her what I wish someone had told me 40 years earlier. You were never invisible. People just weren't looking. But now they are. And they see how brilliant you've always been. That's become part of my mission now. Not just building a business, but creating space for other invisible women to be seen, to be valued, to build their own empires if they want to, or simply to know that their work matters, that their creativity matters, that they matter. Miguel works with me now. He left Lisa's father's restaurant 3 years ago, said he wanted to be part of something meaningful, something that aligned with his values. We work well together. He handles operations. I handle design and vision. Lisa consults on marketing and digital strategy. It's the family business I never knew I wanted, the collaboration I was too afraid to ask for. Last month, we had a board meeting, all the key people in the company sitting around a table discussing expansion plans. And in the middle of it, Miguel stopped talking mid-sentence and just looked at me. What? I asked. I'm just proud of you, Mom, he said. I know I've said it before, but I need to say it again. I'm so proud of who you are, what you've built. Not just the business, but the way you've done it, the way you lift other people up, the way you refused to let anyone make you small. The room went quiet, everyone looking at me, and I felt that familiar urge to deflect, to make a joke, to change the subject, but I didn't. Thank you, I said simply. That means more than you know, because it did. After all those years of being invisible, being seen by my son, truly seen and valued, it healed something in me I didn't even know was broken. People ask me sometimes what that night at the birthday party taught me. They want a neat lesson, a tidy moral, the kind of wisdom that fits on a motivational poster. But the truth is messier than that. What I learned is that invisibility is sometimes a choice we make to protect ourselves, to avoid conflict, to keep the peace, to make other people comfortable. And there's nothing wrong with that except when it costs us too much. When we lose ourselves in the process of making space for everyone else. I learned that speaking your truth will make some people uncomfortable, that standing up for yourself might crack relationships that were built on you being small. And that's scary, terrifying even. Because what if you lose people you love? What if being seen means being alone? But I also learned that the people who truly love you will adjust, will grow, will learn to see you differently. And the ones who can't, the ones who need you to be small so they can feel big, maybe those relationships weren't as solid as you thought they were. I learned that success doesn't make you less feminine, that ambition doesn't make you less loving, that building an empire doesn't mean you failed at building a family. You can be both. You can be everything. But it requires courage, the kind of courage that comes from deep inside, from that place where you know your own worth, even when nobody else does. Lisa and I were having coffee last week. She's pregnant with their third child, a girl. They're going to name her after me. I hope she's like you, Lisa said, one hand on her belly. Strong, brave, unwilling to settle for being less than she is. I smiled. I hope she's like herself, whoever that turns out to be. But I hope we give her permission to be that person, to be seen, to take up space, to build whatever she wants to build without having to hide it or apologize for it. Lisa nodded. We will. And if we forget, if we start making her invisible without meaning to, I hope she has the courage to call us out on it, the way you did. That's all any of us can do. Call out the invisibility when we see it, in ourselves, in others. Create space for people to be whole, to be complicated, to be more than one thing. I think about Jorge sometimes. Wonder what he'd think of all this. The business, the book, the speaking engagements, the woman I've become since he died. I think he'd be proud. But I also think he'd be a little sheepish, a little embarrassed that he never fully saw what I was building, that he called it a hobby for so long. But I don't hold that against him, because he loved me the best way he knew how. And in the end, that love gave me the foundation I needed to build something of my own. Even if he didn't fully understand it, he supported it. He showed up. He believed in me, even when his belief was limited by his own understanding. That's all we can ask of the people we love, to do their best, to keep trying, to be willing to see us differently when we show them who we really are. The speaking engagement I did last week was at a women's prison. These were women who'd made mistakes, who'd lost everything, who were invisible in a completely different way than I'd been. I told them my story, not the success part, the invisible part, the years of being overlooked, the moment I decided to be seen, the fear that came with it, the freedom that followed. A woman in the back raised her hand. She was young, maybe 30, looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. How do you come back from being invisible so long? She asked. How do you even remember who you are? I thought about that question, really sat with it. You start small, I said. You start by noticing yourself, by paying attention to what you like, what makes you angry, what makes you laugh, what you dream about when nobody's watching. You build yourself back piece by piece, like sewing, one stitch at a time. Some stitches will be crooked, some will have to be pulled out and redone. But eventually you create something whole, something that fits, something that's yours. She nodded, writing something down on a scrap of paper. After the talk, the prison coordinator told me that woman had been there for 8 years, had another 7 to go, had stopped talking about her future because she didn't think she had one. You gave her something today, the coordinator said. You gave her permission to still be a person, to still have dreams, to still matter. I drove home thinking about that, about how many women are in prisons of different kinds. Physical prisons, economic prisons, prisons of other people's expectations, prisons of their own making. And I thought about how the key to freedom is often just deciding you matter, deciding your voice deserves to be heard, your dreams deserve to be pursued, your whole self deserves to be seen. It sounds simple. It's not. It's terrifying. It's the hardest thing many of us will ever do, but it's worth it. My granddaughter asked me yesterday what the most important thing I've ever done was. I thought she meant the business, or the book, or maybe raising her father. But what came out was different. The most important thing I've ever done is refuse to disappear, I told her. I decided I mattered, even when nobody else thought so, even when it would have been easier to stay quiet. I decided my life was worth living out loud. She looked at me with those big, serious eyes and said, I'm going to do that too. And my heart just swelled. Because maybe that's the real legacy. Not the business, not the money, but the permission we give the next generation to be fully themselves, to take up space, to refuse the boxes that are too small. I've been thinking a lot lately about what comes next. I'm 70, healthy, thank God. But I'm not naive. I have more years behind me than ahead of me, and I want to use them well. I'm setting up a foundation, using the money from the business to create opportunities for women who are where I was. Women with talent and dreams, but no capital, no connections, no belief that they could actually do it. We'll provide microloans, mentorship, business education, not charity, investment. Because these women don't need saving. They need resources. They need someone to believe in them the way I wish someone had believed in me earlier. Miguel is helping me set it up. Lisa, too. Even Lisa's mother has gotten involved. Turns out, once you start really seeing women, you see them everywhere. All these invisible empires being built in spare rooms and kitchens and stolen moments between other obligations. Last week, we funded our first 10 businesses. A bakery, a cleaning service, a graphic design company, a childcare center, a translation service, a landscaping business, a mobile hair salon, a tutoring program, a catering company, a bookkeeping service. All women. All brilliant. All invisible until someone decided to look. We had a little celebration. All 10 women in one room, talking about their dreams, their fears, their plans. The energy was electric. You could feel the possibility humming in the air. One woman, Margaret, she's 62, starting her bookkeeping business after 30 years of doing the books for her husband's construction company. He'd recently passed. She'd discovered she was good at it. Really good. But had never thought of it as something she could do for herself. I never thought I could start something new at my age, she said to me. I thought my life was mostly over, that all the good stuff had already happened. I took her hand. Your life isn't over until you stop living it, and starting something new at 62? That's not starting over. That's starting forward. With all that experience, all that knowledge, all that wisdom, you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from strength, she cried, then laughed, then hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. That's what I want to spend my remaining years doing. Helping women start from strength, reminding them that invisibility is not their natural state, that they have always mattered. They just needed someone to witness it. People ask me if I'm angry about the years I spent invisible, if I resent the time I lost, the opportunities I missed because I was too busy making space for everyone else. And honestly, sometimes. Sometimes I lie awake at night and think about what I could have built if I'd started earlier, if I'd had support, if I'd believed in myself sooner, if the world had been different. But mostly I'm grateful, because those years taught me things success never could. They taught me resilience, patience, the ability to keep going when nobody's watching, when nobody cares, when success feels impossible. They taught me that your worth isn't determined by other people's recognition, that you can be brilliant in a vacuum, that the work matters even when nobody sees it. And maybe most importantly, they taught me empathy. I understand what it's like to be overlooked, underestimated, dismissed. And that understanding makes me a better mentor, a better leader, a better human. So no, I'm not angry. I'm here, fully present, fully visible, fully alive. And I'm using everything I learned in those invisible years to help other women find their way out of the shadows. The boutiques are doing well, better than ever actually. But they're not the center of my life anymore. The foundation is. The work of seeing other women, of creating space for them to be seen. Because that's what it's really about. Not revenge, not proving anyone wrong, but creating a world where women don't have to choose between being loved and being successful. Where ambition isn't a dirty word. Where taking up space is celebrated, not punished. Where a woman can build an empire from a spare bedroom and have it recognized as the extraordinary feat it is. Not dismissed as a hobby, not diminished as luck, but celebrated as the hard work, vision, and determination it actually represents. I had dinner with Miguel and Lisa last night. Their kids were there, loud and messy and perfect. We ate lasagna and talked about everything and nothing. And at one point, I just looked around the table at these people I love, who finally see me, really see me, and I felt full in a way I hadn't felt in years. Miguel caught me looking and smiled. "What are you thinking about, Mom?" "How much I love you," I said. "How grateful I am that we found our way back to each other. How proud I am of the man you've become, the father you are, the husband you are." He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you too. So proud that sometimes I don't even have words for it." Lisa added, "You changed my life. You know that, right? You showed me what's possible, what strength looks like, what it means to be fully yourself without apology." I felt tears starting but blinked them back. "You all changed mine too, by being willing to see me differently, by adjusting your vision when I asked you to, By loving me enough to let me be more than just your mom or your mother-in-law. By letting me be whole. The kids had gotten up from the table, running around the house playing some game only they understood, and we sat there, the three of us, in comfortable silence. The kind of silence that comes when you've been through something hard together and came out the other side. This is what I wanted to tell you today. If you're watching this, if you're listening, if you're one of those invisible women building something in secret, hiding your light, making yourself small, you don't have to. You can step into the light. You can speak your truth. You can let people see all of you, even the ambitious parts, even the successful parts, even the parts that make other people uncomfortable. And yes, some people will judge you, will call you names, will try to diminish what you've built, will say you got lucky or married well or had advantages they don't know about. Let them. Their limited vision is not your problem. Their discomfort with your success is not your burden to carry. Their need to make you small is not your responsibility to accommodate. You are allowed to be big, to be successful, to be ambitious, to want more, to build more, to be more. And you're also allowed to be loving, to be kind, to be a good mother, a good wife, a good daughter, a good friend. These things are not mutually exclusive. They never were. That was always a lie designed to keep us small. If my story has taught me anything, it's that the only person who can make you invisible is you. Other people can overlook you, can underestimate you, can fail to see you, but you're only truly invisible when you accept that assessment, when you internalize it, when you let it become your truth. I spent 40 years being invisible because I chose to be. Not consciously, not maliciously, but I chose it. I prioritized everyone else's comfort over my own visibility. I decided that being seen was too risky, too selfish, too much. And then one night, standing in that hallway, hearing myself called a gold digger, something shifted. I realized that being invisible had cost me more than being seen ever could, that the pain of being diminished was worse than the risk of being judged. So I stepped into the light, spoke my truth, let myself be seen, and my life changed. Not because people suddenly respected me more, not because I proved them wrong, but because I stopped hiding. I stopped apologizing. I stopped making myself small to make others comfortable. I became fully myself, and it was terrifying, and it was liberating, and it was the best decision I ever made. So if you're sitting there right now, in your spare room or your kitchen or your tiny office, building something in secret, let this be your permission. Step into the light. Tell your story. Let people see what you've built. And if they call you names, if they judge you, if they try to diminish your success, remember this. They're not seeing you clearly. They're seeing their own limitations reflected back at them. And that's not your problem. Your problem is deciding what you want to build next. Because you're just getting started, whether you're 25 or 65, whether you're just beginning or decades into your journey, you're just getting started. There's still time. There's always time. To be seen, to be heard, to matter. You just have to decide you're worth it. And I'm here to tell you, you are. You always have been. You just needed someone to witness it. So here I am, witnessing you, seeing you, believing in you. Now it's your turn. To see yourself, to believe in yourself, to step into the light and let the whole world see what you've been building in the shadows. Because the world needs what you have to offer. The world needs your brilliance, your creativity, your vision, your unique combination of talents and experiences and perspectives. The world needs you to be fully you. Not a diminished version, not a quiet version, not a version that fits neatly into someone else's idea of who you should be. The full, complete, messy, ambitious, loving, powerful you. That's who the world needs. That's who your family needs. That's who you need. So give yourself that gift. The gift of being seen. The gift of being whole. The gift of being fully, unapologetically yourself. It won't always be easy. Some days you'll want to hide again. Some days the light will feel too bright, the exposure too raw, the vulnerability too much. But I promise you this, it's worth it. Every uncomfortable moment, every difficult conversation, every relationship that shifts or changes or ends, it's worth it to finally be seen. Because on the other side of that fear is freedom. Real freedom. The kind that comes from knowing yourself, from being yourself, from refusing to be anything less than fully alive. And that's what I want for you. What I want for all of us. To be fully alive, fully visible, fully ourselves. No more gold digger labels, No more invisibility. No more hiding our light to make others comfortable. Just women. Brilliant, complicated, ambitious, loving women, building empires and raising families and changing the world. Not by being perfect, but by being present. By being real. By being seen. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment below telling me where you're watching from. Tell me your story. Tell me what you're building in secret. Tell me what's keeping you invisible. And then make a choice. To stay hidden or to step into the light. To keep apologizing for your success or to celebrate it. To remain small or to grow into all you were meant to be. The choice is yours. It always has been. But know this, whatever you choose, you matter. Your work matters. Your dreams matter. Your voice matters. And I'll be here, cheering you on, believing in you, witnessing your journey from invisible to unforgettable. Because that's what we do for each other. We see each other. We lift each other up. We refuse to let each other disappear. Subscribe to this channel for more stories of women who refuse to stay invisible. Share this video with a woman who needs to hear it. And most importantly, tell your own story. In the comments. To your family. To the world. Your story matters. You matter. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Not even yourself. Now go build your empire. The world is waiting.